Juvenile Court. We have Juvenile Court Judge Sophia Crawford here. Judge Crawford, would you please introduce your guests?
Thank you, Vice Chair, or as Chair today, Harmon. To my right, I have Mr. Tim Adjent, who is our Court Administrator for Programs. To my left, I have Mr. Jim Swack, who's the Court Administrator for Business Operations, and Charlie Ward, who is the Chief Probation Officer. Worthy of mention, who is not here but has really been instrumental in assisting us in the budget preparation process, is also Margaret Dorse, who is an employee at the Juvenile Court.
All right, thank you. Judge Crawford, could you tell me if you are satisfied with the budget as presented by the mayor for your department?
Yes, Chair Harmon, we are satisfied with the budget proposal. However, we have received some information since the mayor's budget hearings that he was not aware of, that I didn't have the chance to present to him, that I'd like to present, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to present to the council today.
Certainly, and you may go ahead and make that presentation.
Thank you. Again, there are some thank yous that I believe are in order, and I'd like to thank Chairman Matthews and Vice Chair Harmon for working with us and for all that you do, as well as all the members of the Budget and Finance Committee and all of the Metro Council. I don't know how you all do all that you do, and some of you even have other jobs as well. I'd also like to thank Mayor Dean and Deputy Mayor Hinote, Alicia, Talia, and Mr. Riebling with the Budget and Finance Department, Judge Green for being a wonderful mentor to me over the years. And as I previously stated, I have Tim Adjent, who's got 40 years of experience. He's telling me now that this is going to be his last budget presentation. I went to him on bended knee and begged him to stay with me after my appointment, and he agreed to. And then we have Charlie Ward, who this will also be his last budget presentation. So they have been invaluable resources to me through the transition. You know you are where you're supposed to be, as I told the mayor, when you wake up every single morning pinching yourself and asking yourself, is this for real? And that's basically what I do every morning before I go to work. I have learned a lot over the 7 months since I became the juvenile court judge. Juvenile court is very unique. As the juvenile court judge, I have dockets 40 hours a week, in addition to supervising approximately 117 employees, managing a detention center, administering a $13.5 million budget. And I want to thank each and every one of you for entrusting me with this challenge and this responsibility. It's a challenge I'm embracing. I could not do this work but for all of the employees of the Davidson County Juvenile Court. I could not do this work but for having a wonderful clerk of the Juvenile Court, David Smith, and all of his employees. I am very proud of the work that we do in juvenile court. For those of you all that might not be familiar with juvenile court consists of several different divisions. A lot of people think that juvenile court is just about delinquency. Juvenile court has a parentage division, an intake division, a probation division, a warrant security division, judicial and administrative staff, and an accredited detention center that we're very proud of. Detention numbers have recently been down, and because of that, we were able to, that assisted us in funding the buyout. When I first came on board in October and shortly thereafter heard that I was going to have to propose a budget with a 2% cut and pay for a buyout out of my budget, I'll be quite honest, I freaked. But in my discussions with Talia and Rich and these folks surrounding me, I was assured everything would be okay, and it's turning out to be just fine. It is my sincere desire to be proactive rather than reactive as the judge of juvenile court. Since I have been appointed, I have managed to go out into the field and see where 30 supervised probation staff members are housed within the community. For those of you, you all may totally be familiar with this, but we have several outposted probation officers that are housed in the different developments all over Nashville. We have visited those. Charlie Ward has gotten me out into the community and introduced me to the majority of our collaboratives. We have another day where I had dockets that cleared up that we're going to be able to get out in the field. My judicial code of ethics requires me to put the bench first, and I have put the bench first, but anytime I get some free docket time, I'm calling Charlie Ward and saying, let's go, and he and Mr. Adjutant and myself get out into the field. We have a lot of accomplishments that I'm very proud of that I'd like to share with you. Last year, we had over 15,000 cases filed in juvenile court. Our supervised probation staff had over 25,000 face-to-face contacts with what averages to be about 434 probationers at any given time. During those contacts, which include after-hours curfew checks and probationer room searches, we had just recently, several months ago, I authorized a probation sweep where basically in cooperation with the Metro Police Department, we did room searches of our probationers and were able to get guns off the street, illegal drugs, and drug paraphernalia. And that's going to become fairly regular but unexpected in the sense of not being announced thing that I'm planning on doing in cooperation with the Metro Police Department. About 85% of our supervised probation youth last year successfully completed their probation and did not return to court during the year. Our supervised probation staff also partner with the Metro Nashville Police Department and the Department of Children's Services, and we have developed what we are calling a recidivism reduction group, where we are focusing on the most at-risk delinquent youth that we have been in contact with in order to provide intensive supervision of those youth. Since about 89% of those at-risk youth are in DCS custody, our court probation staff as well as the Metro Nashville Police Department are working together to try to train some Department of Children's Services staff so that when children leave their custody, they are going to follow them more likened to how our supervised probation staff follows their youth. And so I'm really excited about that. That's at no cost to the court. It's just a program that we've started. And then I'm sure most of you all are familiar with MSAC, which is our Metro Student Attendance Center. Last year, we received about 1,013 referrals through MSAC. And by working with the Metro Public Schools as well as the Metro Nashville Police Department, they processed about 1,500 truancy petitions. As a part of MSAC, that's an early intervention program that keeps those youth out of the court system a lot of times. There were about 1,209 youth through another early intervention program that we have, a pretrial diversion informal adjustment program, that were also successfully diverted from the court side. We have foster care review board members utilizing over 100 community volunteers. We have boards routinely that review kids that are in state custody to try to help us keep DCS accountable for kids that are in state custody. When I was a trial lawyer, I sat on one of those boards myself, and those have been an invaluable resource because it's volunteers that serve the court. Our Parentage Division has successfully established orders addressing paternity, custody, and visitation and setting children for approximately 5,900 children in Davidson County. Last year, children that were in foster care support was collected in the amount of $260,000. I'm very proud of that particular docket because when I started at the court 10 years ago, it came to my attention that parents that had youth in DCS custody weren't paying child support for those youth. And so I started digging in the statute, and the law revealed that that's mandatory and not permissive. Went to Judge Green and said, can we please start this program? And she said, go for it. So we did. And for years now, we have remained in the top 3 in the state of Tennessee for collections of child support for children in foster care. In terms of our goals, when we appeared for the mayor's budget presentation, and you all have heard this, I think, over the last several years that I've attended budget hearings and watched, we have 11 supervised probation officers that are funded under a federal grant, And every year that grant has proven to be somewhat volatile. So I ask that those be considered to be included in our budget because we had not gotten the thumbs up that that was going to be funded this year. Last year we didn't find out until the end of June that they were going to fund those positions, and those positions are critical to the operations of the court and the safety of the community. And so shortly after the mayor's budget hearing, we did get word that those 11 supervised probation positions are going to be funded by the grant. However, and this is the caution that I stated at the beginning of my presentation, another grant that has historically proven to be stable, we got word this year, is being cut, approximately $44,616. That amounts to one vacancy that's a recent vacancy, which is a supervised probation staff member. As I said, at the time of the mayor's budget presentation, we had not gotten word that that grant was going to be cut. So I am asking on my wish list with you guys for that funding to be considered. In terms of further goals that we have with juvenile court, we want to continue to reduce delinquent offender recidivism and maintain the effectiveness and capacity of all of our other court programs while doing so. It's a balancing act. As you can imagine, we have 7 magistrates and myself, and while we're not in court, we're trying to also work with our collaboratives and make sure that all of the other court programs are also running like they should. In terms of reducing delinquent offender recidivism, our hope is to reduce by working with the Metro Police Department, the Department of Children's Services, with the program that we've started, the recidivism reduction program, to reduce those kids that keep coming back to court. And so far, like I said, we're seeing some good results there. We're hoping to increase compliance with child support orders. This goes to another wish list that was not recommended by the mayor that we can, as I said, live with, but it's something that I would ask you all to consider. There has been a pilot project out of the state of Virginia. I think Mr. Swack provided you all information, perhaps, about that program. Our Child Support Parentage Division, the Metro's match is 1/3. The grant pays 2/3 of all the cost of the whole parentage division. The state has agreed that they would fund 2/3 of a pilot project for us to bring in 3 intensive case managers. The purpose of those case managers would be to identify families that come on the parentage dockets so that we can put services in those homes. I've told the parentage magistrates, one of my goals is to get with families on the front end, the first time we see them, and try to identify what services may be available and what services are needed so that we can hopefully reduce those same families from coming up to the delinquency and abuse dockets and ultimately the delinquency dockets. This study in Virginia, the purpose of the program that we're wanting to start in juvenile court is to obtain long-term compliance with child support orders, keep dads out of jail. Obviously there are those that can pay support and refuse to, and then there are those that can't and are down on their luck. For those identified families, our goal is to work with those families and identify what services need to take place, parenting services, alcohol treatment, drug treatment, whatever the service is. We would use these intensive case managers to assist these families in order to try to keep them out and supporting their children so that they can actively be involved in the life of their children. It would give participants a chance, like I said, to financially support their children. Based on the Virginia model, they showed an increase in child support collections by having these intensive case management services. And obviously, it would not apply in every case that comes in the parentage dockets. Those cases would have to be screened and identified. Another goal is to maintain public safety by reducing the number of delinquent and status offenses. Right now, we are working on doing that through our MSAC program. We also have started back, which we haven't in 10 years, but we've started back the teen model court and have actually had a few sessions of the teen court, in it's Cane Ridge High School. We've also gotten one of our probation staff to be certified in GREAT training, which is gang awareness and education program, and he's going into Antioch Middle and training the kids on that GREAT program. The more opportunity that we have to be able to try to get into the schools and work with the schools and other collaboratives, I think the better we will be in terms of being able to reduce the number of delinquent status offenses. Our numbers do show that detention numbers are down over recent years. Transfers to the adult system are down over recent years, and we want to continue that trend for the sake of public safety and having some intact, healthy families in Nashville. And with that, I'll open the floor for any questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Stein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Judge, and all of you for being here. I would be remiss if I didn't say that between Mr. Ward and Mr. Adjunt, there's an awful lot of families and children better off in this community for an awfully long period of time, and you all can't be recognized for your service over that period, and thank you for that. A couple of budget items. The attendance center, all of the funding for the attendance center is in your budget, correct? And it's working.
It is.
Okay.
Very successful.
I bring that attention. Obviously, that was an idea that certainly Mayor Dean was strongly urging on us, and it is my hope that with that model working and your commitment on status offenses, you understand my commitment on the prevention side, that I do hope this time next year we're talking about helping support status offenders and keeping them out of the system in even stronger ways. The second item is help us understand with regard to the probation officers. In the mayor's budget hearing, you were afraid you were going to lose 11 with the state grant. Is that the grant that you got 10 of the 11, or is it a different grant?
It's a different grant.
So there's a different, so how many probation officers are there total?
There's 30 supervised probation officers.
30 supervised, so that 11, okay. It's important, and this is not an unfamiliar dance that Judge Green and I went through for many years in a row, but please explain to us all what a probation officer does and why it's important, and this is directly budget related, because I think this is an important item for us.
Certainly. Anytime a youth is in front of us on a delinquent offense and is identified as being a candidate for supervised probation, they are assigned a supervised probation officer that is an employee of juvenile court. Charlie Ward, as I said, is the chief probation officer. He has just recently started a program where we, at that point that the youth is identified as being placed on probation, their parent is put under an order to report any and all violations. There's also going to be an opportunity for those parents to sit down with the probation staff and be educated on the process of probation. Once they're placed on probation, our staff has a minimum monthly amount of contacts. Our probation officers have a minimum amount of monthly contacts with that youth to keep them in compliance with curfew, to keep them from, to try to help keep them from recommitting, to make sure all of their educational needs are being met and they're going to school. And it's no light task. I mean, we also have some probation staff that literally knock on doors when they get a list from the school system saying these kids are getting, hitting the numbers for being truant. We have probation staff that are literally knocking on doors that's the mom squad, trying to get kids up and out. When I started juvenile court, I actually had the benefit of going out in the field with the POs and watching what they do, and it's amazing to watch. But because they're housed in the different developments all over town, the probationers have access to them, much easier access than having to come to juvenile court to meet with their probation officers. But they have to document every contact. They have to keep a record of everything that they do. Those are routinely monitored by Mr. Ward and the other supervisory level staff, and even Mr. Adjunt will just routinely occasionally go in and monitor the probation officer's entries. They hook up services. If a child needs inpatient treatment, they'll find a resource that can get them the inpatient treatment that they need. We have graduated sanctions where if a youth is on probation and they screw up, a violation is not immediately filed necessarily, depending on what the violation is. We have graduated sanctions, meaning if a youth is placed on probation and they're on probation for drug use, personal drug use, and they're screened within that first 30-day window and they're positive, we don't do a violation, we do a graduated sanction, which may mean taking your curfew from 8 o'clock to 6 o'clock. In cooperation with the Metro Police Department, we do room checks. They ride with them, and Charlie, you can probably elaborate more, but they have a certain amount of rides where they ride with the Metro Police Department in order to do room checks and curfew checks and just make sure that they're compliant with the terms
So
of
the
probation.
bottom line is, these are frontline adults that are making it perhaps the major difference in keeping these young people from going on to something worse. And they're the frontline folks for you all.
While putting their lives on the line when they do it.
Mr. Chair, I would ask that the $44,616 be put on our wish list. I am also supportive of what you want to do with the Parentage Child Support Division, but one of the highlights of actually sitting next to the budget chair, who is far more important than I am in this process, I'm going to defer to him for that discussion. Thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for your outreach to the whole community right now. You are all over the place, reaching out to a lot of folks, and that's, I think, really important to what juvenile court's about. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chairman Matthews, did you?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it. Judge Crawford, in light of what Councilman Stein just brought up, could you kind of explain the other issue that you're having with your budget in a little more detail for us, as far as the funding that you're going to lose through some grant, through the loss
The
of
$44,000 that we didn't know at the time of the mayor's budget?
No, you had mentioned another program that you were going to be losing funding
the
for.
match
Also.
money.
Yes.
It's, that amounts to, I think it was 50, the Metro match would be $55,200. And basically, I have a full copy of the study that was done in Virginia. But basically, these three intensive case managers would work with collaboratives that we already have in place and more, if there's more collaboratives out there, in order to refer folks to, say, a Tennessee parent support program that we use, Nashville conflict resolution and family ties through Project Return. You know, a lot of times folks will come in and say, I'm not paying my support because I have a felony on my record. Project Return helps finds them jobs. This person, this case manager, would be the conduit between the court and the collaborative that we need to use for the particular individual. And visitation issues. Thank you, Tim. That's a huge issue. All of the studies that I have read, Councilman Matthews, say and point to the fact that when youth are raised in not necessarily intact families, but families where they have an active dad and an active mom, they prove to be far more successful than kids that have an absent parent. Our goal is to try to work with these families off that docket to identify the issues that are keeping them from being an active participant in the life of their child. A lot of time, I started on the parentage and child support docket, so I kind of still have a passion for that area. And when I was on those dockets, a lot of times what I heard was, I have a felony offense. And while I can hand them a piece of paper and say, call Project Return or go to Goodwill, it's nothing like having that intensive case manager there that can sit down and really explore what's going on with the family and hook them up with the necessary services so that they can actively be involved in terms of visitation with the kids and financially supporting their kids. It would also reduce incarceration. So,
is it correct, did I hear correct, that the state is going to supply the 2/3?
they have already committed to supplying the 2/3 if we could get the match for those three positions.
Okay, and that's a $55,000 amount?
Yes, sir.
All right. I would like to go ahead and add that to the wish list, but I would like to get a little more information on the effectiveness of that program
I think
for
I
our
brought it with me.
consideration, so that we could have that for
I
our
brought it
consideration.
with me, and I'll get it to you before we leave.
All right, thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Thank
I
you,
only
Ms.
brought one copy, so if anybody else needs a copy, then I'll get it to them.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I've already got that. I've got the whole program.
Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Chair, for recognizing me, and Judge Crawford, as always. And I've been in meetings with Mr. Ward on cases, so I'm familiar with that long list of things that the juvenile's supposed to do. So and quite frankly, I wish you had a long laundry list for what things the parents need to do, because that's the most challenging problem that we face when it comes to this, and look at that as one of your maybe goals, to look at that when it comes to when a child comes in. I noticed on one of your goals, as you said, that you're developing partnerships with community nonprofits and faith-based and other agencies to develop more effective intervention programs or strategies. And one of those I'm very well aware of, is the parents are most affected by this. Also, too, I don't see, and it's probably just somewhere in your budget, but I know that sometimes it's hard to get a psychological, and that is a frequent occurring problem, that when a child is needing that psychological to at least, to access what other services that they need. I know that is truly important when it comes to, again, looking at how to reduce your offender recidivism, because that's so important, because without that psychological, they wouldn't know what services to be offered. And this is something that I observe in some of the situations with juvenile court. The other thing is that just a question, and I should have asked this of the other departments, was what we were looking for, the special purpose fund. We were looking at internal service fees again. Oh, 814.
I knew that was going to be a question, so I
Okay,
asked
and we
about
were
it.
looking at E45 and internal service fees, where you jump from 1600, and then on page E46, you have still internal services fees. Could you just advise me what that is, please?
Yes, ma'am, and we looked at that, right, where's that acronym? Those internal service fees were, you said it's boss fees. And what was it, Mr. Swack, you said that's?
Building operations support services.
Speaking to the mic.
I'm sorry, building operations support services. It's more the general services, I believe, type of needs that have increased.
Okay. All right, and my last question, I would encourage very, very strongly I see where you are in the accomplishments part, where you are partnering with Metro Police Department and DCS. Metro schools need your partnering as well.
We are. I'm
Okay.
sorry I left them off.
Yeah, but they really do.
And
so.
actually, Councilman Moore, I had a community forum on March 29th, and I have scheduled another one for June, where I have invited people from all of those departments to sit round table and ask them what's working and what's not, so that we can try to focus on the things that aren't.
Is that an open meeting?
Yes, it is.
Okay, could you send me information
I'll
on
be
that,
happy
please?
to, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Berry at Councilmember Garrett's desk.
Thank you very much, Chair. Judge Crawford, I really appreciate that you're here, and I'm not going to belabor all of the wonderful points my other council members have made. All I want to do is put a hash mark by the wish list for both the request that Councilman Stein and Councilman Matthews asked for. I think those both sound like amazing programs, and I really appreciate all your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Harmon. Judge Crawford, thank you so very much for this very insightful presentation today. You all are doing a tremendous amount of work, and with a lot of the reports coming from the state level around DCS and what you have shared with us today, it is critically important that you are funded at a level where you can continue to be effective, because like you said, connecting the family to the resources and services that are available once they get into the system is vitally important. I understand the work that you do. I appreciate the work that you do. I want to echo what my other council colleagues have expressed. I do want, Chair, as a member of the Budget and Finance Committee, to also lend my support to both request and ask Mr. Riebling to please restore or include funding for these two items, because it is, well, you know, I just cannot express the gratitude that we have as a council body and me as an individual council person of this body in the work that you do. And just seeing a loss of funding at this level really concerns me. I do want to also ask if you need any help from the council level in terms of helping through a letter or what have you to the state legislators to restore some of that funding in the next legislative session. Please let us know how we can help and assist in that, because this is so important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Vice Chair Harmon. Thank you, Judge Crawford, for being here, and Mr. Ward and Mr. Agent. I used to run around the halls of Juvenile when I was a child, as my dad worked there. Yeah, yep, I was there many days as a child.
But you were just visiting.
Yeah, I was just visiting, just hanging out. I just had two questions. One was, is there an assessment for the children that have to go to the attendance center? Is there some kind of fee?
Fees?
Yeah, fee.
Only if a petition is filed and down the road a court cost is involved. But typically, once they go through MSEC, we're trying to divert those petitions
Okay,
from being
good. I just
filed.
wanna
So
make
those
sure.
cases, no,
Okay.
there's no fee. Okay.
And then the second question is, in terms of, I was listening to your point about the parentage child docket. Do you partner with the Fatherhood Initiative?
We do.
Okay, good deal.
We do.
All right then.
And they're already at the table.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Duvall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge Crawford, I want to thank you for what you're doing for the young people of our community. You and your staff have made a dramatic impact on those young people every time they come before you, and you're able to change their lives and hopefully guide them the right direction. I want to reiterate that I will join Chairman Matthews and Councilman Stein in support of whatever we can do to restore your money. Thank you. Sorry about my voice.
It's my passion. I love what I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilmember Claiborne.
Thank you, and thank you for being here, Judge Crawford. The kids that come to you and stay in the attendance center, what's the average length of time that you have custody of them?
We don't.
You don't?
It's not like a detention center. I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear. The Metro Student Attendance Center is it's a freestanding building away from juvenile court. They come through, get the services they need while living at home. It's not kids that are committed or removed from their home. They get the services while they're in their home.
Okay, so they're not actually attending a class or whatever in a school building?
They do attend some classes, yes. But they're going to school and they're living at home. They've been identified as kids that are running the risk of truant or have already reached the point of being truant.
Okay.
And they're being provided the services they need to change the path that they're on.
Okay, but they're going to their zone school then?
They are.
And staying at home? Okay.
Right.
Okay,
I'm sorry I didn't make
all
that
right.
clear, Councilman.
Thank you, Councilman. Seeing no other members in the queue, that concludes the department hearing. We thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Thank you.